want to change it all. Oh, 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 I want to change. I got A Night Like This, The Cure, coming in for you. I feel like you're going through a major change, Cancer. I feel like you want to change it all. I feel like there's things that you wish you would have done differently. I think there's certain turns you took on a particular road that you wish you could do a U-turn and go back the other way. You wish you could reverse some decisions. Other decisions you stand by. You stand by them 100%, even though they led you to some really difficult places and through some dark times. But you stand on them. You stand on business when it comes to those choices. Other things, you hold a lot of regret around them. You wish you would have done things differently. But hindsight is always 2020. I do feel like you are preparing to say goodbye to a time in your life, a significant person who played an important role in your life, an old way of being, living, doing things. There's something that's going through a metamorphosis here. And I think whatever you're going through, it's really powerful. And you feel that this change is coming. And I think you're revisiting. I think you're reminiscing. I think you want to hold that energy just a little bit longer. You want to hold it close to you. I feel like you're dropping in with music. You're just reliving certain memories. You might be going through your photo album or looking at old letters that were written. You might be looking at old texts. You're just remembering how things were and wishing that things were other than they are now. With a particular person, I feel it's coming through in regard to a particular person. I feel like bringing in a little bay leaf for you. This is for any significant Cancer placement, or if you have a prominent placement in the fourth house. Likewise, if you are Capricorn rising, that makes you a Cancer descendant, and you may find resonance with this read. I just wanted to tap into your collective energy, bringing in a little of that hawk medicine for you to have some clarity of vision, a perspective that gives you really a complete view of a situation, not just, the pretty bits. Sometimes we can do that when we're steeped in nostalgia. We remember all the pretty bits and we forget all the things that at one point, brought us to our knees. But even that was a gift, right? Because it taught you how to rise. It taught you about your strength. And it taught you along the way to really value yourself, love yourself. But there's something really poignant going on at this time. And it's important that you respect this, that you respect the need to really clear out that old energy and to hold space. Hold space. You might even be meeting up with somebody to do this. You're spending the night together. There might be something that you really need to drop in with each other on, right? Some of you don't have the ability to do that in the physical. So you're like dropping in one more time on the ethers. You always shared a special connection with this person. You have the ability to do that. You'll have like a telepathic link with each other. Both of you may be alchemists in your own right. I think you learned a lot from each other. I think this person has been really important on your spiritual path. And they gave you many gifts. And yes, some of them came in boxes of darkness, but you needed to go through these experiences. And there's a part of you that recognizes that you made these agreements with this character a long time ago, to go through certain tough lessons with each other. So I think you're getting a lot of insight about a situation, and also remembering the sweet times, the sweetness. You know, it's sort of like maybe there's been a lot of reflection on the painful aspects of a situation. Maybe there's a need to reconnect with more of the sweet bits, okay? Not in a diluted way, not in a romanticizing way, but also to remember just the glimmers of that person that you saw, where you know that in those moments you were seeing them as they truly are, before all the other stuff, all the BS of life got piled on top of your connection and defined it for you, and you sort of lost touch with that true essential nature that you both hold and that you share in common. You know, this person gets you on a level that nobody else has, you know, and they feel the same about you. You know, your connection is very unique, and it's always like that when we go deep with somebody. All right, let's check it out. What's coming in here for you? I don't know. And I like this. Yeah, you might be, you know, going for one last go at it, whether you're doing that in the physical or, you know, if you're doing it on astral, you might feel like you need that, you know, just one more time, one more rendezvous, one more meeting under the light of the moon. You know, you might feel like, yeah, okay, maybe it is a little selfish. I don't care. Maybe it is a bit indulgent, but I can't help it. This person just brings out my wild side, and there is something that's instinctually leading me in this direction. This person brings out the animal in me. Werewolf and pig making out. Okay, maybe you just want to feast on each other one last time. It's possible. I could see that. This might be something that comes in with new moon. Okay, new moon is going to be in Virgo. You could be dealing with a Virgo, and that will be coming in September 2nd. And I do believe there's an important Venus alignment coming in the following day. All right, so interesting energy there. Interesting energy there. I don't know, maybe you're hoping to recapture some magic of the moment. It could be. Anything's possible. Let's see what happens here. This is an interesting energy coming in for you, Cancer. Let's check it out. What's coming in for Cancer? I really wanted to do these reads to sort of tap into the energy around the Mars-Jupiter conjunction, because there's so much coming in at this time. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think you like the fantasy of that. I have to say, I think you like the fantasy of it. This is how it's coming up. We got future not found, error, okay? Half price hot wings, and a giant sperm fighting a dove. All right. So this is what I got. I got that there's times that you do like to relive the good times. There are times when you think of what you would have done differently, what you would have changed. I feel it's more like how you would have showed up in a connection. Maybe this is a connection that got the best of you at one point, and you recognize now as you're going through this retrograde energy that we're all moving through, that had you done it all over again, you would have done it a lot differently. You would have stood up for yourself in a way that you didn't back then. You would have drawn certain lines that you didn't. You would have maybe, you know, taken back your power a lot sooner than you did. You also may have, you know, made an entirely different choice. You may have had an entirely different connection with this person. You may have felt very differently. But the thing is like, we can always have like those kind of regrets, and they don't make a darn bit of difference, because it is what it is. And it went down the way it went down the way it went down, because you wouldn't be in that position now where you were like, well, if I were back then, I would have done it this way. That always comes with hindsight. It comes with the education of the experience. It's the lessons we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve. And I do feel like there's a part of you that has like a soft spot for a particular character, even though it was a bit of half priced hot wings, Um, there was one time when you enjoyed that, but it didn't really fulfill you. It didn't really give you what you needed. And you may at one point have thought this person is my future, but over time you realize, that it was only meant to be with you for a while. I do feel like there's been some kind of transformation that's occurred in a connection, and you see somebody very differently than you originally saw them. Like something's really shifted for you. And maybe that's why you're dropping in and you're sort of reliving memories, and maybe you're even listening to music that you listened to together, things along these lines, because you can remember a time when somebody was your end all be all. And even though you have a fondness there, you now recognize that they're who I chose back then. That's who I was then, but I'm somebody different now. I'm somebody different now. And there may be times when you do tap into the energy and maybe you really had a lot of chemistry with this person, okay? So there might be times when you're sitting in this place of remembering the good times and remembering, those times you really came together, that, you might feel that stirring, but I think it's more coming through sort of like a fantasy for you, because you recognize that there's a certain peace you have in your life now that you didn't have back then. And while something could be really satisfying, gratifying in the moment, it also could really get a hold of you and have a tendency to sort of like drag you down. So this could have been a connection where it was really complicated, or there were some kind of codependent dynamics like runner chaser syndrome, or you just felt in some way that you couldn't really feel valued in the way you wanted to feel valued, or have the sense of freedom and peace in your life that you always longed for back there, and it's fun to fantasize, right? But the fantasy doesn't always measure up to the reality. And I think there's an interesting thing you're doing right now. I feel like you're kind of like on the other side of something, and you're reviewing, you're looking back over your sort of history. It feels like with one person in particular, and you're recognizing how much you've risen above your sort of like old impulses, or maybe even an attraction you had. Like the things that you're attracted to now are much different than what drew you in then. You've been through some kind of major healing process here. And I think this is just kind of befuddling you a little bit. I have to say, it might be befuddling you a little bit, because you always thought like that something would always be firmly, rooted in your heart in such a way where you couldn't see any other, right? It's like your great love or something, or what you thought was your great love. And I'm not saying they weren't a great love. I think you learned a lot from this person, but maybe you're starting to realize that there can be more than one soulmate in one's life, and that love changes, it evolves, and also love doesn't need to grasp or cling to its old form. It's okay for love to transform. You very well could still have a connection with this person, on some level. Some of you still connect with this person on the ether, like you can feel them tap in every now and then. Others of you feel, a connection for other reasons. You might share a child with this character, okay? So I think there's had to be a lot that sort of had to be transformed in this situation in order to accommodate that if you share a child with this person, you know? Something once had a hold of you. I do feel that. I think it used to have a hold on you. It did. But now you're at a place where you feel like you firmly got a grasp of this thing. It doesn't hold you. It doesn't have a hold on you the same way it used to. There's something about this coming as a surprise to you. And even as you're reviewing, your memories, and you're feeling like the fondness of that, I do feel like you've really cleansed something here. You've majorly transformed something here. And I think you feel good about it. Like there's a part of you that feels like, you got a part of yourself back. Does that make sense? It's almost like there's a part of your soul that at one time was so tied up in this person, and your memory of them and your dreams around them and what you hoped would be, that you see it completely differently now. So I feel this is the case even if you don't share a child with this person. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't share a child with this person, I feel it's like the same kind of story. Something really used to have a hold on you. At times you may have felt extremely attached. At times you may have recognized in yourself, this feels like an addictive connection, or this is becoming a little bit too obsessive on one end or the other, like something here just, it feels too much. I don't feel in my power in this connection. This doesn't always feel healthy. It could have been a connection where there was a lot of partying too, or there could have been some kind of addictions in the situation as well, right? And I do feel like if you share a child with each other, if you're not together now, this is a case where you definitely had to go through a healing process. Maybe you went through a recovery process. You had to do that for your child. You understood it was imperative. And for others of you, you went through a healing process, a recovery process for the child inside of you. You know, there was a young part of you that was still attached to the situation. It can be almost like a psychic attachment that keeps a part of your consciousness always living out from that space and time, even though it's in the far recesses of the past. And people often talk about the inner child, right? And they think really young years when we talk about the inner child, but we forget about the aspects of ourselves that are from our teenagers. And those are really fundamental years when you're just starting to head into that place of individuation and really understanding who you are and figuring yourself out. And it's very awkward. And there's a lot of growing pains and insecurities and you name it, right? And I feel like, I don't know why it's coming through like that, but it is coming through as more like your teenage years, those foundational years. There might have been a soul part you had to call back from that time in your life. Okay. And yes, you very well could, share a child with this person. But I feel like this is kind of like rebirth energy for you. Like there's something you're celebrating here. Some of you are celebrating your recovery birthday. Okay. That's really good. You may be even like formally marking the moment that, you walked away from something and that you reclaimed yourself. If you haven't, that might be a good idea. It might be a good idea, especially if you're a Cancer Leo cusper. I mean, it's your solar return, so you could be a Cancer Leo cusper. That might be something cool to incorporate, in your celebrations, is celebrating, like your rebirth, like getting on the other side of a really intense, healing process. And it was an inner journey. It's something you've done for yourself. I don't think you've necessarily gotten completion with the other. And I think you've also arrived at this place where you're like, it's not about that. It's not about that. And that in and of itself freed you up. I think it's freeing you up. You may have been waiting for closure from another, and you recognize, no, closure is something I create for myself. It's when I recognize the gifts that I got from that connection, even though I went through hard times, even though there were times it really took me to some heavy places, even though I felt a lot of grief in releasing this, even though there was a lot of loss, like, oh, I got so much out of it. And to me, that's what forgiveness really is. People dress up forgiveness in a lot of ways. It's not even so much about saying, I forgive you. It's when you can appreciate the value of the experience and the contribution that person gave to your life, even if it came through an experience that may be viewed as traumatic. Now, that's some dicey terrain, right? Because people will say, well, I'm not going to be grateful for, somebody putting me through trauma. And I'm not saying that's a justification for somebody putting you through stuff that was abusive or unhealthy or that created you some kind of damage, emotional damage, collateral damage that you've been sorting through, sifting through, integrating, healing. But it is the way that we can make the really painful, incomprehensible experiences of our lives have some kind of meaning and value. And in that, we can often find a point of integration. You might be arriving at such an integration point with a really painful healing process that did activate trauma for you, okay? And you may be looking at it through that lens that, yes, this happened. It's not right that it's happened. It's not fair that it happened, but it happened. And I can now see what I gained through that experience and the healing process, even though I would prefer to have not been put through that. I now recognize the ways that I found a lot of strength within myself. It's so important to focus on that at a certain point in a healing process than looking at what we feel the other did to us or what happened to us. It's not about that at a certain point. It becomes about what happened to us allows something to come through us that couldn't have been possible any other way. It's a very special moment. And I know you know what I'm talking about because I wouldn't be talking about it with you unless you did truly understand that. It's a very unique experience. It's an experience when all those things you used to curse, all those things that used to tie you up in knots, all those things that made you so angry or frustrated you or, brought you to tears or just made you feel like inside, like you were dying. It felt physical. It felt real. I mean, that's what happens when we really love somebody. When we open ourselves to somebody's ultimate vulnerability, we gain them total access into our inner sanctum. But at the same time, we also like hand them a knife and say, here's how you can really hurt me and do me in. And it's always a risk. You know what I'm saying? But it gets you to the other side of that, where you start looking at the education it was, the teaching it was. It gives it a different perspective. It gives it more of a spiritual perspective. And I feel like whatever came through this for you, and you very well may have had like a last hurrah with somebody. You may be in the throes of that right now. There may be something coming around the bend. But I think whatever it's sort of being anticipated as, right? In your mind's eye, when you reflect on it, when that happens in real time, I think it's going to be quite a different experience than you expect. I think what you get out of it will be a lot different than what you thought it would be. You know what I mean? There's something here. There's something here. I do feel like you're closing something out with somebody and you're revisiting things. Let me get another cycle of the cards here and do a cut, and then I'm going to pull out my shadow light playing cards, okay, and get some confirmation and clarification on this. I do pick up a spirit of celebration around this. I do feel like you're about to head into a time when you have something to kind of like toot your own horn about, like feel good about. I think you got a healthy sense of pride in place. And I think this is really good, Cancer. Okay. It's important. It's important that, sometimes we got to celebrate ourselves, we got to celebrate how far we've come, because there may not be other people who get it. There may be people who are insensitive to the experience we went through or the healing process we've been integrating, and they don't really understand. They don't understand both the vulnerability and the power of that, let's just say. You may have even felt like in some respects your healing process was disrespected, okay? And I think maybe you're starting to understand that some people are just kind of like where they're at and they don't know how to hold proper space around such experiences. And I think there's a part of you that's able to tap into some compassion around that. Yeah, like I said, look, a woman breastfeeding a VCR. So yeah, I do feel like you're looking at the old times, You might even have you might still have a VCR. You might be a Generation Xer. You might still have a VCR. You might be watching some, old videos, You might be watching movies, that you used to watch together, okay? Things like this. I just feel like you're sort of doing this like review, but it's got big, like brand new, like clean slate kind of energy. Like you're really about to leave the fantasy and your attachment to all of that behind. You're recognizing that you're quite a different person now. And you like who you are. You like who you're becoming. And you know that something is like, I don't need to nurture this anymore. You might even be finding a little bit of humor in it, actually, okay? Yeah. It might really blow your mind that, something finally coming to an end, what you once thought would be totally cataclysmic, like the end of the world. You're now like, actually, everything's fine. Like it feels right. And I never thought I would feel that way. And I like where things are at now. It feels good. It feels appropriate. This feels like there's some kind of release happening for you here. Kind of the deck. We got Galaxy Dad here. Okay, this to me is real Saturnian energy. Saturnian energy. Somebody may be kind of tripping over their words. You might be having a phone conversation. I mean, I do think there's been sort of like this mutual sense of martyrdom, on both sides. I think both of you felt like the other hurt, you know, each other. Like you both feel the same in regard to these issues. But I do think something is just kind of like it's time's up, you know? There's not a desire to go through another cycle again. I do think in a particular connection too, there's been times that the trust has just really been eroded. So if this is somebody that you share a child with, you also may feel like, we need to get along, and I want to have that connection and I'd like to be friends, but, I also need to, put down certain boundary lines in this situation because, the magic's gone, the thrill's gone. It's not what it was, and I'm not who I was back then. There's been a transformation that's taken place in my life and this is long overdue. So something is being released here. And I do feel like, this has a lot to do with just moving through the work, the work around old wounds that maybe still had a hold over you. And I feel like you both are processing this. I think you both are processing this. And even if you think you aren't, that you're not both processing this, I think there's some kind of message that will come through that will really highlight that you're both kind of releasing it, like you're letting it go. And I don't feel like this is done in such a way where there's aggression around it. It actually looks like it's like a spiritual cleansing. There's like peace here. There's peace here. It might have been held up for a while. You might feel like it's long overdue, okay, whatever this is. But something is finally going through its wrapping up process. Yes, and the letting go on with this, like the lights dimming. So yeah, it's like curtains down on this act. It's like it's time for, some new characters, to take center stage in your life. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just get some clarification with these cards here. Yeah, we got a new beginning in your life. There's new openings happening in your life. New directions are coming to you. There's a new opportunity on the other side of this release. I also think that you're committing to a new path and you're all in your new direction that you're heading. Like, you don't have one foot in, one foot out. Maybe there was a time when you were sort of straddling that divide. Like, you still had a foot in the past. Now, naturally, if you share a child with somebody, that's always going to be the case. But that's not what I mean about keeping a foot in the past. I mean, like, keeping a possibility open that there could be like a renewal of the connection on a romantic level or an intimate level, even if it's something you hid really deep, 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 deep down in the subconscious. It's like, I think there was a little piece of that there, and you were still hoping there might be some way a situation could turn around. It was maybe like a secret wish, or, you know, something you kept hidden in the shadow, hidden under the light of the moon, let's say. You may have even revisited it in real time, okay? Or like I was saying, you connected on the ether or something. Like, your energy's dallianced at one point, I do feel. But I think ultimately, you know, there's not that sort of like indecision in place anymore. When we keep a foot in the past, we are in a place of indecision. And maybe you really wanted to have a partner in your life, you know, somebody that you could fully commit to. You may have been finding issues, you know, if you were in a committed relationship, as you still held like a place card for the past, that it was interfering with the dynamics in your connection. And now that you're in this place where you're coming to closure and you're really like, no, I know that chapter in our story, even if it does continue as friends, or, you know, or if we have to get along with each other, or whatever it may be, or if we work together, okay. I think you're at this place now where you're just like, I know that that part of it is done, and I'm at peace with that, and I'm at peace with where things are at now. And something about this is renewing a commitment for you in your life. If you are in a relationship, I think it's healing your committed relationship, because now your partner is really going to feel like you're fully there. You're not like stuck in that halfway point. It can really translate as like indecision. You're ready to really give your full self to your future. 3311 on the clock. Yeah, this is a powerful healing, you know. And there's something here with the 9 of diamonds in the shadow where you recognize that if you were to invest any more energy in the past, in this connection, in this direction, that truly, you know, you're at a loss. You know, this doesn't allow you to be your healthiest self. It doesn't allow you to be your most empowered self. It doesn't allow you to be your most embodied self. And it actually even blocks you in your material reality from activating your destiny and what you're really here to do. Okay. So this is not the path of growth. I think you're choosing the path of growth. And you have cut something off here. And I think it's very healthy with the King of Spades. You were very decisive about this. You're activating your wisdom. And you could have been dealing with somebody that has a strong air sign placement in their chart. Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. This is Aquarius energy, really strong though. And I think that, you know, ultimately you're like, yes, you were a soulmate to me. You taught me a lot about some really tough stuff, but I recognized through the process, I healed a great deal. But I know you're not my ace of diamonds there, you know, and I'm okay with that. I think there's communication about it. I feel like you're both talking to each other. It's like, it feels like a really positive communication. And there's something that's a little bit of a divine humor about this situation, you know, the fact that you're both at this place where you're like, no, you know, actually, it's cool that it turned out the way that it did, you know. It's very interesting energy here. Let me do a cut of the deck and we'll call it good. Yep. We got the 2 of spades coming up in the light. So I feel like at one point you might have gone through a period where you blocked each other off, where, you know, you really like went cold to each other. You might have had each other blocked on social media, or you just weren't really interacting with each other. But I feel like you're beyond the blocks in this situation. I think you're at the place now where you can laugh about things, you know, you can see the humor in certain situations, you know, there's the fun side of the connection is still in place for some of you that, you know, maybe you do have, um, you know, like a child that you share, or there's something that requires that you interact with each other a lot. I feel like there was also always a lot of humor between the two of you. You know, you could just look into each other's eyes, and without saying a word, you knew what the other was thinking, and you'd laugh. You know, you'd have inside jokes. You know, this kind of energy. I think what's cool here, what I'm really seeing come through, is you've recovered like the friendship of the connection. And for those of you, it is coming through. So I do want to respond to it. Okay. So for those of you who still have that little inkling of a flame left, and you're like, I don't know, you never know, anything could happen. Okay. I don't think that you're keeping a door open at this point for that piece. Your focus is on friendship with this character here. All right. Friendship. I think that that's for those of you, though, that are really like having a hard time moving into the growth. Okay, there might be some stragglers there that are really still struggling with bringing something to an ending, and so they're still kind of hanging out there in the South Node. There might be a few of you. I feel like the vast majority of you are really at this place where you're like, the connection's been transformed. Others of you, a small bunch of you, you're just about there. You'll see something will go down that will really make it quite clear that it is time to let it go. Okay. And I think when this does become clear to you, you won't have any trouble with that. Right. You'll release it. You'll release it with grace. This is an ending to bring about a new beginning. And it's a brand new cycle for you. You're going to have a whole new view. Enter the gateway of transformation. You won't regret it.